Hello, everyone. Let me just get everything in order here. Right, and I'm going to take some notes first. So let me say hello. Welcome, Little Stamp, Pietro, Christian, BLK, Blackman. I don't know actually what your name is. Galamoth, Saucy. Um, Is this the America Frenzy stream or was that yesterday? No, this is. I am going to say something about the American Frenzy. I want to get to that. Um, Actually, in this stream, I want to go through the rest of Stormvale. I did a couple things off stream, so I'll go over that. But I want to get this out of the way. So I took some notes on my phone. I'm basically just going to write them down and talk about them. So, America, their main character. Um, Very weird, some of the revelations from the DLC. Black Man is also correct. Okay, awesome. I memorized lucidity. I'm fine. Yeah. Okay, so America, because we had all this stuff with the Newman, the Nox, the Eternal Cities, and then it's difficult to figure out how that connects with the shamans. So America has a hammer from the lands of the Newman, which is outside the lands between. And we know that the suppressing pillar says that it sits at the very heart of the lands between, which indicates that, this isn't just referring to the it isn't just referring to the Shadowlands, although you could make an argument there. I think it's a weak one. You could make the argument that the descriptions in the base game, as far as they're concerned, the Shadowlands is outside the lands between now. Yeah, that seems a little bit weak. So I would say the lands of the Newman are outside. They're nothing that we've seen in any part of the game. Um, Once again, the Newman are not from another world; they're descendants of denizens of another world. Yes, but there's also multiple things which say, like the hammer says, the lands of the Newman are outside the lands between. The Newman rune, I want to say, says something as well. Newman rune. What is that not? Oh, because it was Newman's rune. The Newman are said to have come from outside the lands between. So, yeah. Now the other world part, you could argue about what exactly that means, but they're outside the lands between. They come from outside the lands between. Now, America is never explicitly said to be Newman herself. What it is said is that she is of the same stock as Newman. It's also not said whether she was born in Shaman Village. It just says that Shaman Village is her home, which is, splitting hairs, but maybe it's important. And then we had that not in game, so this is, we can flag this as not necessarily totally canonical. The line that the Shadowlands is where she first set foot. So, okay, that's one bit. Then we have demi-human Queen Mariga, which I can't. That has to mean something. I don't believe that they're just trolling us. That's got to mean something. Now maybe it's a very simple explanation, like, well, in ancient times, America or variants of that name was just a more common name. But this is a game made by people. It's not just random what they put in. So If America isn't Newman, then I would assume that Newman were the ones that made the crypt ships, which I also assume came from another world. Take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, that has been discussed, and I'll make that another section here. So the what are they called? The coffin ships. They've got bullhorns, and they have something. The flesh they carry something. What is it? That's like all the putrescent stuff, right? The putrescence is what remains of the impure lives kept within the stone coffins. So, and the lands between is where all manners of, I want to get the exact line, all manners of death wash up, something like that. The very center of the lands between. All manners of death wash up here, only to be suppressed. So it's possible, you know, maybe in the Newman lands they sent impure putrescence in these ships to the lands between because they're dead, so they washed up here, and then somehow the shaman came out of that. That's a little bit hazy. So, okay, that's blah, blah, blah. Okay, then, oh, where's my notes? Okay, then I was thinking about Ymir, and Ymir has quite a number of interesting lines. So, one, he says, Mikola knew that, that his bloodline was tainted. When actually I wanted to check if Kale, where's Kale's dialogue? Hello, Colt. Yeah, he does say tainted. Oops, wrong one. The land has been tainted by madness since the shattering of the Elden Ring. Anyway, that's one thing. He also says he knew his bloodline was tainted, his roots mired in madness, which is interesting. Because this is also interesting in as much as America's children are all messed up. Cursed or in various ways. I've seen the stone coffin ships are related to the ancient dynasty. I think they were the original Newman. Maybe. The old, what do you call them? Stone glyphs. They're not really glyphs. What do you call those types of things? Monuments, I guess. Depict ships arriving. They look similar to the stone ships, but not similar enough that you could say it's like that's for sure what they're depicting. They could just be depicting random ships. So let's see, what else does Ymir say? I fear that you have borne witness to the whole of it, the conceits, the hypocrisy of the world built upon the Erd tree, the follies of men, their bitter suffering. Yes, their bitter suffering. Is there No hope for redemption. And then he says they were, this is about the world built on the herb tree. They were, where was it? There was it. They were each of them defective, unhinged from the start. America herself and the fingers that guided her. And then he says, do you recall what I said? That America and the fingers that guided her were unsound from the start. The truth lies deeper still. It is their mother who is damaged and unhinged. The fingers are but unripe children. And the use of unripe is interesting because you have all the grapes, the madness, frenzy grapes, which, you know, take care that they ripen, that they fully ripen. And the what's the whip called? As the wounds ripen, they grow inflamed and ooze pus. The flesh of shamans was said to meld harmoniously with others. Okay. Then we have Nanaya is maybe pregnant in that picture, possibly. What happened to the baby? Why include Midra in the DLC? Which is, I think, actually pretty significant because, like, the story of Frenzy, it seemed like we pretty much had an end to that. Like, we covered everything that we needed to cover there in the base game. It didn't feel like there was you know, a big gaping hole in it, really. So it's odd that, like, this DLC is about Mikola and also about America's past and using Mikola as a way to talk about America's past. So why have this whole area? Why have this whole area and there's a literal gaping hole in Frenzy? Okay, fair enough. I am talking metaphorically. But why include Midra in the DLC? That seems odd, you know. Why have this whole story there? If that's not, it's not obvious how that fits into the other themes that we're getting in the DLC: the Crucible, America's ascent to godhood, her backstory, Mikola's story, Mesmer. You know, how does all of that relate to Frenzy? That's odd. And he, you know, he's one of the major bosses, so that's an interesting choice. Melina is anti-frenzy, and let's see, Shabriri's eyes were gouged for slander. Oh, I forgot to write the nomads were locked underground as heretics, where they chanted a curse to summon frenzy. Um, then the weapon skill for Midra's sword says there is something of the Golden Order in the sight of those fixed fixed upon on this crux. Um, yes, and Frenzy has this void in it, which, according to Emir, that's a good point. Yeah, Emir's hat, uh, hat, Emir's hat's circle represents the greater will and its lightless abyss, which is odd. We have in times past, every single person who attempted to control the flame of frenzy succumbed to madness after a desperate internal struggle. Oops. And then we have another description. Yet Midra, like others before him, was too weak to become a lord. Which is interesting because it's almost like maybe the flame of frenzy is not inherently something which leads to the world being burnt. It's maybe a power which could theoretically be controlled. If you became a lord of chaos, I don't know. It just puts a slightly different color on things. What was this? It is the maddening pain and unstoppable tears of those afflicted with the flame of frenzy brought into being. I don't remember what that's from. I think that's maybe Midra's incantation. But tears is an interesting choice because we have, for example, crystal tears of the Erd Tree. The Erd Tree weeps, essentially. So that's another thing. What else do we have? The flame of frenzy burns the eyes, but tranquility follows in its wake. And I mean, one interesting thing, before the DLC, there was all this stuff about the cut quest line regarding Saint Trina, which was very directly connected to Frenzy. Now that we have Saint Trina, it seems that has been completely removed. And yet, I wonder if it was entirely removed. I wonder if all of that was completely if that's not still kind of true. The relationship between sleep and frenzy is it's just interesting that we had all these missing pieces about Mikola, and somehow it connected to Saint Trina, and somehow that maybe at one point in time connected to Frenzy. Now we get the DLC. It's all about Mikola and Marika, and there's this weird, odd, surprising fact that we have all this stuff about Frenzy as well, which we didn't necessarily expect. So maybe there's a connection there. Spirits are eternal, and yet the frenzied flame melts them away regardless. No wonder the horn scent forbid the flame's use. And Nidra's Manse has a bunch of what, fingers, and I don't even know what you call them, finger eggs. So that's kind of interesting as well. It's like maybe he was researching the fingers. Also, it would have been weird if they had left some gameplay effect from the base game unexpanded. Well, but they expanded lots of things in small ways, but this was a huge area of the map with, albeit a relatively small dungeon, but a dungeon and a major boss, and there's like 10 different items, and there's a new incantation, there's a new weapon, there's all of this stuff. So um bu- 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 then I don't even know why I put this here, but it just seemed kind of interesting. Um, am I compiling the Shibriri data in here as well? Not necessarily. This is just sort of random notes that caught my attention. So, the clan who lost everything in the Great Fires appeared upon corpse. God, I can't spell. Corpse of their ancestor, normally an act of sanctity, and saw in its shadow a twisted deity. The clan had suffered, an emphasis on suffering, such torment that the horrible thing was taken as an object of worship. The interesting thing about that is, what is it called? Outer God Talisman Heirloom. So that this, or I guess I could open up the proper thing. Let's open that up. Icons, talismans. Where are we? There we go. So there. Now if we pull up maybe Slavsky will have something. Shaman. Shaman. What? Why is this not giving me something? What is all this? What? Why am I getting these random results? I want a good picture, but I suppose this will kind of do. Maybe Shaman Village, what, grandmother statue, something. That doesn't. Oh, maybe if I put in Elden Ring. No. Okay, whatever. You can see this one. So let's zoom in there. It's kind of crappy quality. And then if we look up the tutelary deity, that's probably not going to bring it up. What about revered spirit ashes? So better reference be Bonfire VN. So these sort of figures with the spirit ashes are seems to be this, that hands are in the same position. And I was wondering if maybe it's also the hands are in a different position here, but I wonder if maybe there's a connection there. Hmm. Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me, Little Stamp. Mesmer's Flame also has the ability to destroy spirits. Where is that? I think that's the furnace pot? Yes. And also a reference to impurity. Mesmer has the same unique power as the Flame of Frenzy. That's interesting. A tutelary deity. Shaman, maybe? No, that wouldn't necessarily make that much sense because the shamans then have. Well, some of the tutelary deities have horns. Whereas it seems like the shamans do not have horns. That's why they're put in the jars. Or at least I'd have to go back and check whether that's exactly why. But in any case, that's sort of interesting. And then there was something else that I wanted to... yeah. Oh, well, Demi-Human Queen Mariga, that's kind of interesting because this refers to blood fiends, which are they demi-humans? It seems like they are. They drop string. I don't think anything actually explicitly says whether they are. And then there's the demi-human swordsman. I have no idea what to make of that with the stars. Hmm. Peak bone arrows? Demi-humans see a god in the mutilated corpse of the deity, which was a high-ranking member of the society that oppressed them. Well, I don't know. So another thing that we have is, long ago, a subjugated tribe discovered a twisted deity amongst the ravages of war, and they were transformed into blood fiends. Mother of Truth was their savior. Also, blood is said to have fallen from the formless mother's wound. This is the like sacred flesh or something like that. Never will it dry, never will it rot. Which is interesting because that's almost exactly what the gold, what is it? Beast blood. Blood. This glimmering blood never rots or decays. That's odd. It's got gold in it, so why does the formless mother's blood have the same property as blood with gold in it? Also, America was an Empyrean. And I feel like I've been pretty well vindicated on my America was the GQs, so I'm going to continue with that. The GQ was an Empyrean chosen by the fingers. Metier is the mother of fingers. Her thumb head looks like black flame. And what I'm kind of wondering is, I wonder if, so let me put some of this together into like a conclusion. Although this is just, I'm just kind of exploring different thoughts here, so I'm not sure what I'm thinking. But I guess this is the question: did Metier birth the three fingers? I mean, pretty obvious question to ask, but it would actually have a lot of implications. Metier was, broken, and what does Ymir say? The fingers are, there's their mother who is damaged and unhinged, right? She's the mother of all fingers. She was unhinged, and she felt separated from the greater will, abandoned. So maybe she birthed the three fingers as a result of that. And then this part I'm not as sure about, but maybe America was chosen by the three fingers. Now the thing against that would be the what do you call it? The Crimson Talisman. No, which one is it? It's not the Amber Medallion. Here we go. The Seed Talismans. The Erdtree seed of this talisman was presumed to be an object of myth. This age-old artifact also depicts the two fingers, perhaps harkening back to the birth of the Erdtree. So it seems like the two fingers and the birth of the Erdtree are connected. So that would be kind of against the idea that Marika was chosen by the three fingers. But I don't know. I mean, Marika, it is, I think, depicted as a kind of tragic story and a story of revenge and cycles of revenge, which is a theme that we get a lot with Frenzy. So this is something I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where to take this, but there's something odd there. There's something odd with Frenzy. I mean, and also this, just Mikla knew that his bloodline was tainted, his roots mired in madness. I mean, okay, maybe he's not saying, hey, specifically this status condition madness, um, but why is Marika's bloodline tainted? Because of Radigan? Like, because Marika and Radigan were one person? And then you have all this stuff with, the frenzied flame blends things together. Especially in that Cut Kali quest, which, had to do with frenzy and the nomadic merchants and Saint Trina. It was very clear that like the merchant brothers were like losing their identity. It was being blended together by the frenzied flame. And you have that, and you have Radigan and Marika, and you have the idea that um the flesh of shamans melds harmoniously with others. And also, why would you need to whip the shamans with these horrible poisoned whips with teeth on them so that they grow inflamed? Like, you can't just butcher them, you gotta also torture them first. They have wounds that ripen, that grow inflamed and ooze pus. That is exactly the sort of way that all of the frenzy stuff is described. Well, not necessarily wounds, but. And you also have um, the pot ladies are blindfolded. So, I don't know. I don't know exactly where I want to take all of this, but I feel like there's something there. Something there. Midra kind of suggests that maybe the three fingers were created, not born. Does he? Like dialogue, or do you mean like the situation with Midra? Um, the Three Fingers gives us an entirely unique ending. I feel like it has to be more thought out than that. Yeah, I mean, that is, there are 6 endings to the base game. 4 of them are variations of becoming Elden Lord. And then 2 of them have, like, whole cutscenes that are created just for that. There's more work put into them, more thought. So the Ronnie and the Frenzy ending seem like they're meant to be a little bit more significant And they're also the only ones that don't end with the Erd tree, so. And I think I might have to go back into my in my Crucible video. I put all these connections between the Crucible, the Formless Mother, and the Flame of Frenzy, which I might have to revisit because I sort of gave up on that idea, but now I'm kind of, I don't know, maybe there is something to it. Anyway, that's just a bunch of thoughts that I have right now. I don't really have any real conclusions, except that I think there may be something more important with Frenzy in relation to America specifically. So, in any case, that's out of the way. So, we're back to Sherlock Bones. Um, so I did some things off stream, some little catacombs and kind of picking up items and stuff. So I'll just go through those real quick. So let's see, Exile Gauntlets. Nothing too special there. Banished Knight Greaves. Okay. These greaves were worn by knights who, I think we already saw this part, whether by misfortune or misdeed, were forced to abandon their homes. So that implies Stormvale is not their origin. These fierce warriors were each and all accomplished. Perhaps that is why, despite their territorial losses, they were still named knights. Okay. So Little Stamp says, I said a long time ago, and everyone thought I was crazy, that I thought the three fingers ending aligned with the Greater Will's wishes. The Erd Tree is a project of the two fingers, not the Greater Will directly. Well, I don't know about that because the Greater Will sent the Elden Beast. Greater Will seems to be affiliated with the concept of order. The interesting thing here would be the idea that Metier and the Two Fingers have basically been totally out of contact with the Greater Will since almost the beginning. So who knows exactly what the Greater Will wants. Let's see. We have Arteria Leaf, which is one of many sort of examples of blood running through plants and trees. Crystal Tear. And I never really thought about this before until I was thinking about that tears line. I mean, the Erd Tree drops tears, and the Erd Tree is sort of emblematic of America. So it's like, oh, and then Gideon says the Queen's sorrow was justified. I never really understood that line, but I think that's meant to indicate that like America is in deep pain, which could lead to frenzy. These are things we've already seen. We've all seen these. Death Root, the Assassin's Crimson Dagger. This charm is modeled after the darkly gleaming blades used in the Night of the Black Knives, those which gave the demigods their first taste of death. To expand expound on that slightly. I think the Rune of Death was in the natural order of things, and America removing a part of structured reality was in defiance of the system the Greater Will started. That I could get behind. That the whole Golden Order is in opposition to the Greater Will because the cycle of life and death is orderly. If you try to remove or expunge one part of that, then that's sort of, I don't know. It is an order, though. It is a type of order. We have glovewort, which is a plant that blooms in catacombs, each a soundless bell. The flowers are bells, which are used to summon spirits, which is interesting. The art of strengthening ashes is known as spirit tuning. And so it's tuning, there's all this musical sound kind of relationship there with spirits. We saw that. Nothing particularly interesting there. Grave violet, a purple flower that blooms in graveyards. The hue of ghost flame. It's believed to be useful in calling forth spirits. And it really is not the hue of ghost flame, but in the Japanese text, it doesn't say that. It just says it's the flower of ghost flame. It doesn't say it's the color of ghost flame. But given that the Rune of Death is gone and the Rune of Death is red, and that in the ancient past you have primeval red lightning, which became gold lightning. You had primordial gold, which was tinged with red. Now Ghost Flame is sort of blue. It's sort of like Black Flame with a little blue tinge on it. Maybe in the past that was more purpley. So that's one way to kind of reconcile it. Mushroom flight pinion, nothing here. We looked at that already. Nothing too interesting there. A record of crafting techniques left by a man who was utterly captivated by Saint Trina. He continued the search for her in his slumber. So there was a cut quest line with someone named Rico who would eventually find what he says is Saint Trina's cadaver. Which now seems to maybe be sort of turned into Tolier. Nothing too interesting here. Those born at the foot of the Erd Tree are blessed. At least that is the enduring belief of the people of the plateau, which I think when we think about Melena's dialogue that she says she was born at the foot of the Erd Tree, that doesn't necessarily mean like literally in the Erd Tree or like right next to it, because this is clearly just referring to the whole Altus Plateau as the foot of the Erd Tree. We've got a painting, nothing too interesting there. We looked at these. The rusted anchor. When the Tarnished left the lands between with their lord, one boat alone was said to have been left behind. And this is wielded by a misbegotten. So the implication is that the misbegotten were Tarnished that somehow remained in the lands between. And that could connect with them making contact with the crucible for some reason. Beast Fang connects to the crucible. That isn't too interesting. We'll get to more stuff about that. We saw that already. Crystal. Radigan's Scarseal, right. So I fought the Zamor Knight trapped in the Everjail. And the Zamor Knight has this, which is very odd. Especially odd when you consider the Zamor are described as long-lived, which is similar to how the Newman are described. They're called long-lived. So maybe there is a connection between the Zamor. We know that the Zamor were mortal enemies of the fire giants, since it, time is eternal or something like that. And then Marika went on to eliminate the fire giants. So seems like there's maybe some alliance there. Could this support the idea that Radigan was a flame monk? That is one possibility I've explored. Let's see. Demi-human ashes. When night falls, their blood boils and they become feral. Does that also apply to the blood fiends actually? Do they go rabid at night? Because that would pretty directly connect them to the demi-humans then. If they also do that. If anyone knows that, you don't think so? Yeah, if anyone knows for sure, I would love to check that. Rattling pate. Yes, we have just normal glovewort, grave glovewort. Spirit tuning is not merely the simple act of imbuing strength, it is an art that lies somewhere between tuning an instrument and conducting a conversation, leaving both parties enriched. Tuning an instrument. So again, the musical sound connotation in regards to summoning spirits. The wiki says someone said that. Yeah, but people say lots of bullshit on the wikis, especially Fextra. It's interesting that we have grave glovewort and ghost glovewort. Ashes which keep their renown even after death cannot be strengthened by merely corporeal glovewort. I wonder if that's also related to the idea that we have normal smithing stones and somber smithing stones. So it's sort of like the identity is stronger. If you just got a generic sword, you can use gold infused smithing stones. But if you've got a sword which is made from the memory of a great hero, then you have to use a colorless stone. And here there's a kind of parallel to that with the glovewort. Your generic spirit ashes you can upgrade with grave glovewort, but for the ones which really are, they remain in memory. That's, they keep their renown. They're important. You have to use this ghost glovewort. Is Torrent's left front side burnt? This is the first time I've ever looked closely at it. The front right side has full, healthy looking fur with no skin showing. Interesting. I will check that. Well, I may not check that now because actually maybe I should. Because that would tie into the frenzy thing. Torrent is afraid of the frenzied flame. Well, because it burns spirits, but you know that's odd though because okay, maybe you just say this is a gameplay concession thing, but like Torrent has no problem at the frenzy flame tower, even though there's a giant frenzy flame there. I wonder if it's that Torrent was actually from that area or he had been to that, the Abyssal Woods at some point. I wonder if there's more to it. I'll check that out once I'm done looking at these. Imped, nothing too interesting there. Dragonfly, Haligdrake, we looked at one of those before. There's an Alabaster Lord on the beach, which is odd. And the Alabaster Lord is where the player character would have originally started out in that alternate opening. It leads into the cave where you find Melina, which is odd. I have no idea what to make of that. Crab eggs. Let's see, anything else here? Saw all of these. Spirit of a nobleman who once asked to be given a place at Raya Lucaria to learn glintstone sorceries. His talents were insufficient to be worthy of donning the stone crown, however, and he is only capable of using the most rudimentary sorcery. So again, the aristocracy learning sorcery, that's a thing. I guess there's the implication because glintstone, it's sort of like what maybe symbolically it's like an obsession with wealth, obsession with jewels. Glintstone is I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Um, Wandering nobles. This is all fine. Great axe. So this is what I was talking about with Horalu. This is the weapon of choice of Badlands chieftains, but if we compare it to the Highland axe, they're clearly of the same culture. Highland great axe. And oh, and another point, actually, I meant to write this down. Let me do that. Another point in the Horalu is from the Highlands. Where was that? Is that the Red Bears use Earthshaker moves. So that to me, there's enough various different bits of evidence that pretty directly peg Horalu as a Highland warrior. Not that that's particularly controversial, but it just helps to get all the evidence in place. Okay, where were we? We have the aspects of the Crucible tail. Weird, not really draconic tail, more like a, I don't know, well, maybe a snake tail. Once I get my faith high enough, I'll use that and take a look at it. We have Starlight Shard, prized item that was once used in the Eternal City as an ingredient in intoxicating drafts. So it Starlight is used to control someone, to manipulate someone, to turn them into a puppet, to make them fall asleep, which is interesting, all the sleep connotation. Also, a lot of cut content that relates to that. We'll look at that again when we get the Amber Starlight Shard and do all the Celavis stuff. Let's see, Godric soldiers. The soldiers who served Godric the Grafted are what remains of the army that fled the royal capital of the Erd Tree. I think someone pointed out, which I just never really thought about. It's perfectly obvious in retrospect that you have the beast and tree emblem, and this is obviously the result of marriage. This is what the heraldry, it does that a lot of the time. You have two different crests: the crest of the beast representing Godfrey and the crest of the tree representing America, and therefore it is their union that is displayed on that crest. Blood fiends don't go nuts at night, at least not the ones near the forge. Okay. So they may be different things. I think the comment just mentioned their eyes turning red. Well, do their eyes turn red? Because that may be, there may be significance to that, even if they don't go feral like the demi-humans. Lutel the Headless, spirit of a headless knight who leads the mausoleum soldiers. No, they don't. They don't get red eyes. Interesting. Spirit of a headless knight who leads the mausoleum soldiers, wields a lance enrobed in death and hurls spectral lances at foes. Lutel sacrificed her life so that in death she could continue to protect a soulless demigod until their revival, earning her the hero's honor of Erdtree burial. There's so many things about that is odd. One, how did she get Erdtree buried? Because she's ashes. I guess maybe the ashes were buried, and then we retrieved the ashes, which is why we now have them. She sacrificed her life so that in death she could continue to protect a soulless demigod until their revival. Now we have all the mausoleum knights. They seem to be protecting the wandering mausoleums, so I assume that the protection is just that, so as a spirit sort of protecting the mausoleums. But until their revival, so there's a plan to revive the demigods, and that this is something that's cool with the Golden Order. They're already in that enraged state, fighting and dismembering each other. That's an interesting point. Yeah, they're already like feral. The normal demi-humans are. Maybe that has to do with the demi-humans. Um, one has a staff. The sorcerers were reaching out to them, and someone mentioned, going back to America, that there's demi-humans and Dominula people in Gelmir, where there is also frenzy. And Dominula is clearly directly connected to the shamans because it's the same type of village. Um, and that's a festival which involves possibly skinning people whose skin is clean. I'm going to have to look into all of that. I need to. Well, we'll get to Dominula eventually. Human bone shard, prattling pate. We already saw these. This is all the same stuff that we've seen. Oh, I did get the sewing needle. Actually, now, there was the idea that Bach and Radigan were somehow connected. That was an idea that was floated out a long time ago. But actually, they might be via the shamans. If Bach is a demi-human and the demi-humans are related to the shamans, and Radigan is Marika, and Marika is related to the shamans. So the sewing thing might be sewing and maybe sewing skin. That might be related. Godskins, Glowmide Queen, Snake Skin. Okay, a couple different thoughts there I will want to return to. Land octopus. Oh, I mentioned this in a previous stream. Land octopuses eat humans in order to bear young. So they have human blood in the ovaries. Okay. Demi-humans and beastmen are different, though. I wonder how different they really are. Also, just crazy thought. Malekith is never called. Well, he's called the Beast Clergyman. I wonder if he's a demi-human. I mean, now that we have demi-human Queen Marika, it doesn't seem that crazy. He doesn't really look like the normal Beastmen or like Blythe or like Sarosh. Although, to be fair, those are all very different looking between themselves. But maybe I'll look at Malekith and see if he resembles the demi-humans. Golden Halberd, Tree Sentinels. And then I think we saw all of these things. So that's everything. So I think now we're just going to go on to Malekith looks like a rat without his armor. I wonder. Let's just do a little quick checking here. That's a fun idea. Why am I getting these random search results? Zlofsky second. Can I find Zlofsky? Do I need to do like... They change this? Advanced search. I just want to find anything from... Why did they change this? This is so annoying. There we go. Okay, so that's what I've got to do. Malekith has a tail. So Malekith has white hair like Sarash, which is kind of interesting. Hmm. Yeah, they're pretty different. They're pretty different. Yeah. Anyway, we have Blythe, who is a wolfman. Yeah, and Shadows of Empyreans are wolves. Yeah, all that stuff. That was just a fun thought. So we are gonna go continue onwards through Stormvale. Let's go up the stairs first. I'm thinking the shamans had white hair, such as Godfrey, actually, while Marika was blonde. Unless previous Marika wasn't blonde. I'd have to check the jar people to see if they have white hair. I don't remember now. Oh, damn it. Alright, let's just go out this way. Malekith almost looks like a badger. Well, he's not meant to be seen without the stuff. Without the armor and whatnot. Concept art of Malekith definitely reminds me of that Black Wolf thing from the Neverending Story. Yeah. Really? Oh my god. Oh my god, stop. You're so annoying. Beastmen are the way they are because they were granted fingers and int. Demi-humans are more like missing link. Yeah, I mean, I always thought it was maybe like a causality regression thing that like people evolved from beastmen and then demi-humans are a regression back to being more beast-like. But with demi-humans in the Shadowlands and being maybe tied to those boats, and there's one called Queen Mariga. Now I'm not really sure. And maybe they were cursed, you know. I think Martin played with the idea of evolution or even de-evolution, but with FromSoft's god-awful willingness to give timeline clarity, doesn't quite hit right. Get it together. This is just Stormvale. True. True. Interesting thing about Malekith's concept art is also that his hair slash fur is partly golden. Looks like half and half, where his hair is losing its color and becoming gray. Hmm. I think they named their queens like that because they see in America a savior, as she was the one that freed them from the horn scent. We see later that they were in good terms with the Golden Order. True. True. But I wonder if maybe there's more to it. If maybe they were allied with the shamans. I mean, if the. How do we know that she freed them from the horn scent, or is that just a guess? Yeah, I guess yeah, so that still depends on them being related to the Blood Fiends or not. Maybe Malekith being in Fair Missoula near the heart of the storm of time has an adverse effect on him. His gold becomes drained of color. Hmm. Wooden Great Shield. Hmm. It's got two lions. Let's take a look at it actually. Hmm. Seems like a sword. I don't think I really recognize that sigil from anywhere else. Pretty sure about the Blood Fiends being demi-humans, honestly. Maybe they don't have red eyes, but they still get attracted mid-combat with alluring pot. Um, well, I don't recall the alluring pot, what that says exactly, but that's not specific to demi-humans, isn't it? Isn't it, are there other things that can get lured in by the pot? Only demi-humans and blood fiends can get allured mid-combat? Really? Hmm. I think I do recognize that sigil, but I can't remember where. It's a little bit like the Gelmir sigil, and it's a little bit like the Distinguished Great Shield, but those are more elaborate and thought I could beat him up there. Um, hmm. That and the string. The string is a pretty good connection because string is so um, random. And I don't think anything else drops string. It's just the demi-humans. My PvPers would probably know better than I. I thought it was just demi-humans that drop string. Oh, and can't you buy string? What's the deal with that? What is the thing that you can buy string from now? Uh, string sellers. It's in Prospect Town? Where's Prospect Town? Oh, that's the that's where the blood fiends are. So that would also be pretty good evidence. Almost positive I posted a lion sigil like that and was looking for other showings of it. I mean, it's like many other generic lion sigils, I think. I mean, it's like this one. There's just two of them, right? Yeah, seems to be like the same one. So why is an omen here? I want to get a good look at him. White hair. Game audio is muted? Oh, really? I forgot to turn that on. Um. Hmm. Does he only have 4 toes? Really? doesn't have 5 fingers. How do I never notice that? Only 4 fingers. It's like a Simpsons character. That's interesting. 5 fingers is a sign of intelligence. They are sort of brutish. I want to get a better look at this, this armor, though. The golden bit. Should it come into the light, but at the right angle? Oh, that's pretty good. Stay right there. So... is that a lion face? Or just sort of an ugly face? Kinda hard to tell. Looks not dissimilar from some of the markings on the Eocade armor. It's a little different. But let me pull that up just to double check it. I would say that Margit just let Godric have this omen. I mean, does Margit control the omens? Didn't he make them fight for the Golden Order? Well, omens fought for the Golden Order, but I don't know if that is because of Margit necessarily. Or Morgoth. Yeah, it's a little different. There's snakes here. There we go. Yeah, it's different. Who else could it be then? Well, it doesn't need to be that they were like led by anyone, right? It could just be that you had all these omens. All right, let's use them as warriors because they're hulking and strong. Trolls were also forced to fight for the Order, right? I don't remember if the trolls were forced to. I'd have to look at the... What is it? Something about lesser giants. What is it called? Wait, it's Troll's Golden Sword? They fought for the Erd Tree during the war against the giants. There is something else that mentions that, I think. Maybe it's one of the... one of these things. War against the giants, champions battle, trolls betray. There we go. So that makes it sound more like they did it of their own choosing. But who knows? We don't really get much from them. They are, I mean, intelligent enough, right? Because we've got EG and the Carians. Carians made peace with them. Is square off strong, like compared to other AO Ashes of Wars like Lion Claw? Yeah, it can be really good, because the R2, I mean, it basically gives you 2 moves, 2 extra moves instead of 1, which I always prefer because there's more options then. And the R2 does a lot of stance damage. You can break guard pretty easily. It all depends on how you're using it with other things. So we will first go up. I've never really understood this design of Stormveil. I feel like this... You should not be able to summon this elevator. Or this door should have been closed or something. Something really weird about that. That, like, you get to this site of grace, and you can go up the hard way, but you can also just bypass that by taking the elevator. It feels wrong. Feels like you shouldn't have been able to access the elevator. Stormcaller. Oh, let's look at a couple items here. So, one of the skills that channel the tempests of Stormveil. Yeah, nothing too interesting there. Pike. Yeah. As we could take a look at these guys. It's a tree seal. Is faith evidence-based? Miracles are the evidence. I think it's difficult to say because I think normally I would say, like, since Demon Souls you've had this thing of faith versus intelligence, sorcery versus miracles, 2 different paths to understand the same kind of, you know, magic. And usually it's that, you know, faith, well, it's what you'd think. Faith is sort of an irrational belief that has a certain kind of power, and then intelligence has to do with study and understanding the world, and maybe that leads you to something that you shouldn't be led to often. But it's a little bit odd in Elden Ring because, like, the early Erd Tree, it has all these magical powers, essentially, right? It's healing people, it's warm, it's giving dew and sap and all this stuff, the Age of Abundance. And then... And that's associated with... I mean, the Golden Order's heyday, essentially. And then you have fundamentalism, which comes along, presumably after the Age of Abundance stops, and they start using intelligence and study to understanding the Elden Ring itself, applying basically the sort of sorcerer's approach via Radigan and maybe what he learned from Renala. And yet the Erd Tree now is just a symbol of faith, because it doesn't provide these physical, tangible benefits. So, I'm not sure what to make of that. Not sure. Commoner's Headband. An Iron Great Shield. Depicts the Round Table Hold. But fundamentalism still requires faith? Well, not the law of regression and causality, right? Those ones just require intelligence. Such fragments command a high price due to the magical power locked within. This leaves the living jars unfortunate targets for poachers. Could removing the Rune of Death have caused the Erd Tree to lose capability to provide blessings, if the blessings were some part of some death process? I think that's a very reasonable interpretation. Because there is, you know, a huge amount of emphasis put on how there's a cycle of life and death. You know, life comes from death. So the idea that, you know, if you get rid of death, that it removes the vitality of life. I mean, that's sort of one of the broad themes, I think, is why the Golden Order doesn't work. So you eliminate death, you also eliminate vitality. Which is why I think one of the more interesting theories regarding Godwyn is that he was killed to try and revivify the Erd Tree. So it would make a lot of sense. You have the Golden Order, it starts out, you remove death, and at first everything looks great. But then, very quickly, you start to realize that, no, everything's rotting. Because if you don't have death as this thing which sort of tempers and, like, if you're a warrior, right? Well, if you can't die, then there's no real stakes to anything, to your fight. It doesn't mean anything. You're not testing yourself, really. So then, you know, are you even a warrior anymore? Are you able to prove yourself in battle because you can't die? So death is necessary to make life meaningful, to make it sort of burn brighter. It seems Alexander and the jars can convert energy/power pretty directly if the roots and blessings work similarly. Yeah, I mean, if you're asking how death works in Elden Ring, I still don't have an answer to that. What's that? That's a bad animation. Is everyone being tarnished is the right solution in that philosophy? You can both die and have eternal life in a way. Well, I think there is... I mean, I think this is one of the reasons, maybe not the only reason, but I think this is one of the reasons that Marika sent the Tarnished specifically to die because she says grow strong in the face of death, right? So it's an understanding that facing death makes you stronger. That is an important part of it. Without death, there's no evolution also. I really like the Crucible versus Golden Order feel on that. So, were there only 3 new ulcerated tree spirits in the DLC? I only remember 3. I think I remember 3. What? How did that hit me? Oh, come on. Alright, better let me do it this time. I was hoping that we'd see just 1 non-ulcerated tree spirit. At least 4? Were there 4? There's 1 in Bellerot, the bottom. There's 1 in the church. The church district. And... Are there 2 in the church district? Can't remember where the other ones were. So, we're here at the bottom of Stormvale. Also, this is kind of interesting, this lake that you can't access. Similar kind of to Lendell. There's 2 in Bellerot? Don't remember that. Isn't the Erd Tree Avatar a non-ulcerated tree spirit? I don't know. See, there's something snake-like about the tree spirits that I think is got to mean something. So, here we have bodies in boats. Where exactly they came from, I don't know. Maybe this was flooded at some point. Connected to the sea. These seem like really ancient sort of canoes. You actually see this elsewhere on the beach. There's one of the beaches, which maybe I'll get back to at some point. There's a few Those Who Live in Death. So I would guess that these are tarnished. I don't know. It's odd. If Deathblight only affects tarnished, that would make me think that Those Who Live in Death are tarnished. They seem to be really ancient, though, at the same time. But I don't know about that. Tree spirits and the omen both have that gold black effect. Yeah, like the holy flame. So, Prince of Death's pustule. A fetid pustule taken from facial flesh. It is said that this pustule came from the visage of the Prince of Death, he who used to be called Godwin. As first dead of the demigods, it said he's buried deep under the capital at the Erdtree's roots. Could be an ancient burial practice. Referring to the boats, I'm assuming. Look almost like chrysalids, more carapace than boat. I sort of thought that at first, but they do look wooden if you look closer, and it's just very decayed. There's like planks in there. Stormvale is also the only place with that super wide bridge to the Divine Tower. So this was taken from Godwin's face. And it seems to be indicating that it was taken from his face under the capital at the Erdtree's roots. So the fact that it was brought here sort of got me thinking that maybe that is what caused this thing to appear. But it's very odd because it's like it burst through the wall. Let's go in recam for this. Like, it looks like this barreled through the wall, you know? Very odd. No eyes, unlike the corpse in under Landell. It's kind of the same in the DLC surrogates. Yeah, I mean, that also makes it... In a way, it's a little more... It feels a little bit better with those, because now this is not as unique. This is something... You know, it was weird in the base game when you just had... Like, okay, Godwin's face is appearing on Deathroot and on crabs and stuff, but then there's like this enormous version of him here, and this is the only place that's like that. Now that we have multiples, that feels like, okay, this is not a totally unique situation. There is something odd about it. Cadaver surrogate. Complete free will and the ability to break the laws of existence and perform miracles. If that's true, then how can we say we have free will at all if there are so many factors limiting and affecting? Well, it depends on what you mean by free will. You can have free choice within a limited system. She's got sort of thorny tendrils. Sort of removes ideas of this being a stowed Godwin body part. Well, that's what I thought. I mean, I thought it would have made a lot of sense if... Actually, where does this... This is all the way down here. Interesting. I sort of thought that maybe Godric had tried to graft a bit of Godwyn onto himself. And then it was like messed up, so he threw it down into the depths and it grew into this giant body. But now that there seems to be like a purpose with the cadaver surrogate and his death knights, now I have no idea. No, I have no idea why this is here. Ratatosker had a good video about the curse. I'll have to go revisit that. It's just the weirdest thing that it seems like it crashed in. You know? Actually, where does this so this direction is southeast? That doesn't even make any sense. Hmm. I thought they were using it to facilitate grafting or something. I don't know. And there's Rogier getting impaled by Deathroot. Are these great tree roots here? Are they just kind of generic roots? Maybe. Maybe they're connected to the great tree roots. Godric really, really wanted the title of Golden, and he does seem like the type to be a part of the Black Knives plot and had access to Godwyn, but his trophy turned foul. Well, at least the talisman seems to indicate it was cut from... Maybe his body slowly turned into something like this over time. Started with little pustules, they cut it off. I don't know. Godwyn is still a mystery. You know, I like the long ladder climb. We had it in Bloodborne. I can't remember if there was one in Dark Souls 3 or not. I like it in this game, except in Bloodborne you were going from the woods and you just started going up and you didn't know what was coming. And then it was like, oh wow, this big reveal. It's like coming back to Firelink Shrine or something, you know, it's big shortcut reveal. Here, there's nothing exciting about getting to the top of the ladder, so I feel like that's not as effective. I did this already, okay. Long ladder climb gives you a great creepy screenshot of Godwyn's face looking up at you. That's true. That's true, that's good. So... We've looked at Godwyn. I guess we'll just... What else have we not done here? There's a Crucible Knight. I guess we could go take a look at that guy. No one wants to talk about free will? I don't know what you're asking about it. What do you mean, what do I mean by free will? Well, the problem with most discussions about free will is that people define it differently. Is this one below Stormveil even Godwyn? I guess they do look pretty identical, but does anything confirm that if you think the pustule was taken from beneath the capital? It is said that this pustule came from the visage of the Prince of Death. He used to be called Godwyn. So the pustule itself comes from Godwyn. I take it to mean that this was taken from the actual Godwyn beneath the capital, not taken from the base down here. Do you think Prince of Death is merely a title? Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Like, could there have been another Prince of Death? Or, if you're the Prince of Death, is there a King of Death? A Queen of Death? So, let's see. Storm Assault. Blah, blah, blah. Storm Winds. We got more of that. Marred Wooden Shield. Some say it is the curse of grafting which causes such affliction, while others talk of its root being something altogether more sinister. Yeah. I always assumed Rogier cut it off, and that causes his death blight and eventual death. That's an interesting idea. Prince does imply some kind of line of succession. I also did, but I guess crucially that pustule has eyes there, which Stormveil thingy doesn't. I mean, I think it's got to be another one of these surrogate cadaver things, right? It's clear that Godwyn's body has turned into something else, and that's referenced as the Prince of Death. I think it's an actual identity of some kind. Come back. More like entity. Like he became something else. Oops. That's an interesting concept. It's an interesting concept. I think this one just says the same thing as the previous one. Horn. Primal vital energies. Mm-hmm. Out of worship, he could have become an outer god, just like the Formless Mother. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, because both the Formless Mother and Rot seem to have been sort of created by certain conditions. You know, I'm actually starting to get a little bit of a headache, so I think I'm going to call it here. And, we'll fight Godric next time. Yeah, I just need to go, like, drink some water and do something else. So I think that's going to be it for today. I'll probably be back on Sunday. So not tomorrow. But thanks for stopping by, everyone. I appreciate all the comments. Good discussion. If anybody has any more thoughts about America and Frenzy, I'd be curious to hear them. Alright. Take care, everyone.